Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. As many of you know that we're dedicated to helping people detox from as many hormone disrupting chemicals as possible. And one way that you can get exposed to hormone disrupting chemical is through your oral care and oral hygiene. And a good oral hygiene is essential for a healthy body. However, the conventional oral care industry is actually very plastic heavy. There is phthalates in toothbrush, flavored floss can contain PFAS, and there's even BPA in dental sealants. So transitioning to a greener oral care routine can seem impossible, but thanks to biodentistry that it's not. So today we're really excited to invite Dr. Staci Whitman to join us. Dr. Staci is a board-certified functional pediatric dentist. She's the founder of NoPo Kids Dentistry in North Portland, Oregon, where she takes a whole-body, holistic, and functional approach to her patients. So we're really excited to ask her about this approach to dentistry. So I'm going to...
Hi,
Hi, Dr. Staci.
how's it going?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining us. I am
Of course.
so excited to talk to you about this topic.
I am too. You have great questions and content, and I am happy to be here and happy Friday to everyone.
Yes, happy Friday to everyone. So, well, I did a little bit intro already, but please tell all the viewers, like a little bit about your background, like what let you become a board certified functional pediatric dentist.
Yes. So, first, thank you for offering me to join your audience here today. Yeah, I'm a board certified pediatric dentist. There isn't really such a certification in dentistry yet. I will be sitting for my Institute of Functional Medicine certification this fall. So fingers crossed I pass that. But I practice in Portland, Oregon as you mentioned, a holistic functional pediatric dentist. I was trained very traditionally, as all dentists are. And I do like to make it very clear. I think that's essential. Like, we do need that foundational traditional training. But as I expanded my own personal horizons with how I approach health and wellness, and then I applied that to how I was practicing my dentistry, things just didn't start. They weren't aligning, and it wasn't resonating with me, and I felt a lot of dissatisfaction in my career. And so I thought, well, geez, why can't I just practice differently? Like, practice more like a naturopathic dentist, if you will. And does that exist? And so it's taken years and years and shadowing colleagues and experts and taking additional CE and reading books and taking courses. But I kind of created a practice model that I'm very proud of. It's very unique. I believe it's one of the only in the country. And it really does take a root cause approach, but also it puts the mouth back into the body. And I do believe, because dentistry and medicine are separate, that it has just occurred in the general public, even among dental and medical providers, that they're separate and that one doesn't impact the other. And of course, that's just silly. What happens in the mouth influences the body and vice versa. And the mouth really is the gateway into the body. It's not only where we get our nourishment and our food and our energy, but it is where bacteria and viruses and pathogens and things can come in very easily. And it is also easy to see. And so we do see a lot of disease and issues and nutritional deficiencies and, airway issues in the mouth. And, we can't see them in other places of the body. So it's a really great place to do a lot of diagnosing or uncovering for patients that are having health issues or just concerns. So, I do take a little bit different approach, and we kind of connect the dots, and we really do like to look upstream. We do a lot more metrics, if you will, like lab work if necessary. And the oral microbiome is very important in functional dentistry too. And, so many of us focus on the gut microbiome, and we know a lot about that, but the oral microbiome is really becoming front and center, and its influence on the gut, but also on the rest of our health. So we do focus a lot on that in the practice as well.
That is so interesting. So then tell us, what is the functional dentist? I think you alluded to that already, but what's the official definition?
So, I mean, it's really so functional medicine, functional dentistry is really essentially a root cause approach. So instead of just coming into the dentist and having x-rays taken and your teeth cleaned, and then the dentist pops in and looks at the x-rays and looks in your child's mouth and says, they have cavities, book it, I'll see you in 2 weeks, and they walk out of the room, we sit and really have a conversation. So your appointments are a lot longer. It's heavier on the education standpoint and about prevention, but really what happened? Why did these cavities form? Again, I think we've just accepted cavities as part of life and no big deal. And it's not to create like fear or sensationalism, but our teeth are not meant to dissolve, which is essentially what a cavity is. So we've normalized something that really isn't normal, and common isn't normal. So we will really go through an extensive intake of the child's birth history. Well, even before that, preconception, what was the mom's pregnancy like? What was birth like? What was breastfeeding like? Food introduction? What is the child's sleep like? Behavior, airway assessments, but also nutrition. And we do know a lot of dental issues can be related back to nutritional deficiencies like vitamin D, trace minerals, just fat soluble vitamins in general. There's increased risk with gluten sensitivity, celiac, and there's a lot of downstream effects to that. So if we can get these things diagnosed and under control in a child, we're setting that teenager and that adult up for a pathway of health and success as well. We also are pretty conservative with our dentistry. So we do try to allow the body to innately heal if you can. I mean, you can arrest, which means stop or remineralize smaller cavities, not all cavities, but smaller cavities, with certain protocols. And we use a lot of ozone, and we use lasers, and we have a very specific protocol. We do oral microbiome testing, and depending on the microbes, sometimes antibiotics are necessary. It's really a whole body approach, if you will. And we really respect emotional health too. So I do think so many times as providers, we tend to become dictators in a patient's health journey, and really we're supposed to be teachers and partners and team members. And so we tell a parent, like, you have to have a crown on this tooth, and you have to put your child under anesthesia. And sometimes those are recommendations, but it is important to include the parent in the conversation, because ultimately they're making these health choices for their children. And I think really we're missing a lot of the educational component, and the human to human connection too. And there is so much dental phobia and medical trauma. And at the end of the day, if we're not really digging deep and teaching a family what went wrong, if you will, then these issues may just come up again in that child's life. We're lucky with baby teeth, we get a second chance, but as providers, it's really on us to help support that family, and create motivation to prevent issues in the future. So that's part of our approach, and it's really successful. I mean, very commonly in dentistry, you have we say like repeat offenders, like someone comes in with cavities and they just keep coming back with cavities year after year. And again, I believe it's because we're missing the whole point. We're not teaching root cause issues and getting to the true diagnosis. Cavities are really like end stage disease. It's not really the issue. There's something else. Was it what we were eating, how we were breathing, how frequently we're eating, mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, oral microbiome dysbiosis? Those are the real diagnoses as far as I'm concerned. And so we're missing that. And because of that, we're not really creating ultimate health and wellness.
Wow. Can we have like 1 million copy of you? This is like so like eloquently said, right? Yeah, I think like we just don't focus enough on prevention, and I also feel that oral care or hygiene is like really your first defense.
Yeah,
Besides these underlying issues that you also mentioned, like potentially emotional issues, because I know people grind their teeth if they're like stressed out, even
absolutely.
adults, and I just think kids would be the same. And this is so important to have a dentist with this kind of wealth of knowledge to really guide families through these underlying causes rather than just like, hey, fix that filling or something like that.
Yeah, and I think also we forget too, like, dentistry is not easy, and when a child sits through a dental procedure, that can have long-term effects and associations, and they may be, if they didn't have a good experience, they may be less likely to be adults who go to the dentist because they did have this negative association. And so that should be part of your treatment plan as far as I'm concerned. And then also, a lot of children do need sedation and anesthesia if they're very young and they have extensive needs. It's definitely part of our specialty, but we need to appreciate how that affects the family emotionally. Like, that's a hard pill to swallow, if you will. And so we just need to be more emotionally supportive of that. It's funny. I think of these analogies, and we're so quick to say your child has to have their teeth fixed. This is crazy. Like, this is neglect if you don't. And meanwhile, I see kids all the time with huge tonsils and adenoids who can't breathe, or, even like defects in their heart. And sometimes the doctors will say, let's just watch and wait. Maybe it will resolve on its own, or let's wait till the child gets older. But for some reason in dentistry, we just really push these treatments on kids. And of course, if a child's in pain or there's infection, that's a different story. But I just think we need to be thinking differently and just working collaboratively with parents more so. And emotional health is really important. It really is. And it should be part of every provider's treatment plan as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Wow. I think your patients are so lucky to have you. So I'm also seeing terms like green dentistry, biodentistry. Like, what are some like differences between that?
Yeah, so functional dentistry, I think, really takes a bit more of a medical model, and works very collaboratively with our medical colleagues. And because of that, there are more metrics and labs potentially run. And that's hard with kids, obviously, getting blood work and doing these tests, but we do the best we can. There's like finger prick tests and things we can do. So to me, functional dentistry is if you really take a traditional model, but you expand upon it and you are looking at the whole body and connecting everything upstream. Biological dentistry, it's very similar. There's a lot of overlap, but really they're focused on maintaining as much of the natural tooth structure as possible, using as many non-toxic biomimetic products as possible. The thing is, that's also included in functional dentistry. So they're very similar, but a lot of biological dentists, they don't have additional training in functional medicine. They don't have additional training in naturopathic medicine. And again, it's very nuanced because there's no real certification program right now. I hope someday there is the Institute of Functional Dentistry. And like, there's been discussions among some of my colleagues and I, like, how can we get that up and running? Just to get more providers trained in this capacity. So green dentistry, that's a less used term, I think, but green dentistry to me is more trying to keep your office as sustainable as possible. And there are some certifications for that. And medicine and dentistry, we go through a lot of trash. I mean, we need to be mindful of cross-contamination and keeping things sanitized and clean between patients. And because of that, there's a ton of plastic that like plastic covers and films and one-time use items. And especially if you've ever worked in an operating room, I mean, the trash for one patient is shocking. It's, sometimes it's 4 or 5 huge trash bags of trash just for one patient. So it's really trying to take a look at these things and seeing what can we use that's paper? What can we use that's reusable and still maintain standards of care? What can we give out to patients instead of plastic toothbrushes? Can we do wooden toothbrushes or toothbrush handles that just the heads are replaced? Because, ultimately, I'm obviously really passionate about health and wellness, but we can do whatever we want to do to maintain health and longevity. But if our planet isn't healthy, it's sort of all mundane, if you will.
Yes.
So we really need to be starting to take our planetary health more, treat it more importantly as far as I'm concerned. And so as a professional, my office is not perfect by any means, but it is something we talk about at each staff meeting and team meeting. And, how can we continue to improve systems and create less waste? Can we become paperless? X-rays are digital. The products we use are as sustainable as possible. And that's a personal passion of mine. And where I've gotten more into product development is I have all these ideas and see all this opportunity. And so it's something I hope to pursue more as my career unfolds.
Wow. Yeah, totally on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, now shift gear because the people what we're going to talk about today is also oral hygiene. So many people think about, oral hygiene as just about having fresh breath. So, tell us how important is a good oral care, like a good oral hygiene.
Yeah, I really, it's important. Hear me out, but it's less important than I think many are led to believe. So I always like to look at our ancestors and ancestral humans and kind of how we've evolved. We didn't have toothbrushes and floss 10,000 years ago. In fact, when you look at ancestral humans, they really didn't have cavities. So cavities are pretty new in the last 10,000, 12,000 years. And a lot of that started with the agricultural revolution and then the industrialized revolution. And so what happened then? Well, we started growing wheat and corn, and then we started milling it and refining it and making flours and adding sugar to everything. And then, fast forward to modern times where cavities are now the number one chronic disease in adults and children globally. And I find they're on the rise. And now there's some data to actually support that. It's because of our modern food. So yes, hygiene is incredibly important. And if I were to pick, I would pick flossing as more important than brushing, to be honest with you. And I'll get to that in a moment. But it's really a lot about diet. And it's not only what you're eating, but also what you were eating pre-conception and during pregnancy, because that is when baby teeth or primary teeth develop, is during pregnancy. And permanent teeth develop after a child is born. So making sure we're eating nutrient-dense food. My mantra at my office is eat the rainbow, because I want kids to learn how important it is to eat vegetables and fruits of varying colors, mostly because that offers prebiotic fiber to feed our beneficial bacteria. A lot of this all comes back to the oral microbiome. And so ultra-processed foods in the modern diet, in the way we're breathing too, it's shifted our oral microbiomes and our gut microbiomes. And we're seeing that now. Like the microbes that we had, again, like 10,000 years ago are very different than they are now. And it's really, at the end of the day, it's pathogenic bacteria that are causing oral health issues. And they feed upon fermentable carbohydrates or ultra-processed foods. And what shocks a lot of parents is it's not just candy and soda and juice that causes cavities. Most of us know that, but kids are still getting rampant cavities. So what is it? And it is goldfish crackers and Cheerios and pretzels and chips and granola bars and fruit snacks and dehydrated fruit and fruit leathers and all of these things that are marketed to us as busy parents on the go as easy, quick, healthy snacks for our kids. But in actuality, they can cause issues, and they can cause oral microbiome dysbiosis or imbalances, and they can cause cavities. And it's because they're sticky and they are fermentable carbohydrates, which is what our pathogenic bacteria feed upon. And I don't like, an all or none mentality. I'm very big into like the 80-20 rule, but I just think it's important for parents to understand this, because otherwise it's very easy to just get into a goldfish cracker rut, if you will. Like that's what your kids like. They're highly palpable. There's something called the bliss point, where it's like this perfect blend of fat and salt, and sugar, and your brain just goes wild for it. And it's not willpower. Right. I'm guilty of it too. If I open a bag of Doritos, forget it. It's empty. I can't stop myself. But they're not nutrient dense. They're not satiating, so you don't get full. It's sort of like mindless eating, and you're just snacking, and that can cause a lot of issues with your oral health. But then also we need to look, okay, so if those foods are causing cavities, what are they doing to the rest of the body too?
Right.
And so what are they doing to your gut health? And then, we do know a lot about food dyes, and some of these other additives can affect like behavior, like mimic ADHD. It can affect sleep. So it's really all encompassing. But yeah, so I guess to go back, like, yes, oral hygiene is very important. And I do emphasize flossing most importantly, because we've heard of leaky gut, but leaky gums is a thing too. And so if you have gingivitis, which is very common, that's when your gums they bleed or they're puffy and they're red. That now is an entry point for the bacteria in your mouth to get into your bloodstream, and then it can circulate all over. And we do know the oral systemic connection. These bacteria can get places they're not supposed to be, like our brains, and that can influence and impact likelihood of Alzheimer's and dementia. They can get in our hearts and increase cardiovascular events. They can lead to like diabetes, pregnancy issues, infertility issues, rheumatoid arthritis, or just general inflammation. So to me, like, flossing is quite important. And I do believe it's just because we need to be doing it because of our modern diet. I think back in the day, we were eating and chewing a lot of fibrous vegetables and roots and meats and things, and we just didn't need to have the impeccable oral hygiene that we do now. But in reality, that's not how we eat now. So yes, brushing and flossing is important, but it's definitely not the only thing for prevention, because so many patients will come in saying, I brushed and floss perfectly. Like, we do a really pretty decent job. Why does my kid still get cavities?
Right.
And so that's when I look at, the first thing I think of is how are they breathing? So if they're mouth breathers, they're much more likely to have cavities. And that has a lot of impacts on their growth and development, their behavior, and their brain function. So I look at mouth breathing. I look at the oral microbiome. I want to see what their diet's like. How often are they eating? Are they snacking all day long? Every time we eat, our mouth becomes acidic. That's part of the digestive process. And it's really the acid that's causing issues. So the acid is what's leaching out minerals from our teeth and eventually leads to that hole, which is a cavity. But it's really unpacking a lot of this for parents. So yes, hygiene's important, but it's certainly not the only thing. And I'd argue there's things that are more important to it.
That makes a lot of sense. So like, a lot of people are also, when it comes to oral hygiene or oral care product, people are also really worried about fluoride.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so like why is fluoride such a controversial topic in like oral care?
Sure. This is like a 4-hour conversation. So I have a lot more on my platform if people are very interested in it. And I suggest you check out the Fluoride Action Network. But just to be very brief, I have concerns with systemic fluoride in particular. There are many studies. At last glance, it was like 74 studies, but I think there's more. I mean, literally, it seems like there's new studies coming out every month, and these are very high quality, peer-reviewed, very excellently performed studies that are linking increased levels of systemic fluoride to IQ issues in children, ADHD. It can affect your thyroid. It can affect your formation of your bone, lead to like osteosarcomas. It is a neurotoxin. And it's very controversial because I think it's just been inundated in us that like fluoride is needed to prevent cavities. But it's not true. We're not fluoride deficient. Again, ancestral humans were not getting fluoride supplements. They were not drinking fluoridated water. They were not brushing with fluoridated toothpaste. And if you look at ancestral skulls and teeth, they didn't really have cavities. It was very rare. They did have a lot of wear on their teeth and periodontal issues, which is like bone, but not cavities. And so again, what has changed? It's our modern foods. It's our processed foods. So fluoride was something they threw out there. It happened in the 40s. It was also an observational performance. There was no research done. It was just all based on observation, which would never happen now. Never, ever, ever. And there really has never been a safety study performed, a randomized controlled trial about water fluoridation. So right now there is actually a federal lawsuit going on in San Francisco. It's the people versus the EPA. And it's been going on since I think 2020, and the judge is supposed to rule this month. We'll see. It keeps getting postponed, but it doesn't look good for fluoride. I mean, it really doesn't. I've read all the expert testimonies. It's the first time a judge has said, dental community, I don't want to hear from you. I know that fluoride helps teeth. I get it. I want to know what it does to the rest of the body. Okay. So the argument is not that fluoride doesn't help strengthen teeth and makes them more acid resistant. It's more at what cost? And then how do we titrate how much a child is ingesting with water fluoridation? You know, a child may drink 1 glass of water a day, or they may drink 8 glasses of water a day. And on top of that, there's fluoride in processed foods. You're cooking your pasta in it. You're making soup with it. Now they're brushing their teeth with it and they're swallowing it. It is absorbed through your mucosa. You're getting it at the dentist. It's in medications. Like at some point, there is too much. And so how do you titrate that? And so for me, I get a lot of side eye about this. And I'm like, you know, you start talking about fluoride and you're pegged like a conspiracy theorist. It's such a shame because we're just looking at the data and we're just trying to have a professional, educated conversation about concerns. Like maybe we got this wrong, you guys, like, or maybe we need to rethink it. Maybe we don't need it in our water. Fluoride works topically, not systemically. That has already been proven over and over again in the research. So why are kids drinking it? Why are we swallowing it? Why are we writing prescriptions? Why, if we're so pro fluoride, why not just use toothpaste? You know, why not just use it topically? But that being said, I still have concerns with that. And there's concerns too that it does affect our oral microbiome. What is it doing to our beneficial bacteria? Because fluoride does have an antimicrobial effect. I truly believe it's one of those things we are at some point going to look back in history on and kind of go, ooh, I think we got this wrong. But from a functional dentist standpoint, again, we're missing the root cause. So I think patients, consumers think, oh, I'm using fluoride, I'm good. It's not the issue. Your issues are stemming from how you're eating, what you're eating, how you're breathing, your oral microbiome, your gut microbiome, nutritional deficiencies. Not that you're not using fluoride. Fluoride's sort of a band-aid. And honestly, with cavities as prevalent as they are and on the rise, it's no match for the modern food that we're eating. You know, fluoride maybe helped briefly for a while, but now cavities are still going up. And I see plenty of patients that use fluoride and they still have cavities. So it's not like a magic bullet. You know, you can still definitely get cavities if you're using and consuming fluoride. And again, I would rather save all this time with arguing about it and spend this time to educate our patients about root causes so that they can truly prevent disease in themselves and their children.
That makes so much sense. So if we're exposed to like so much fluoride, is there like any way we can do to cut back the exposure?
Yes. I mean, I don't use fluoride in my home, and I personally haven't used it. So I had my own holistic wellness journey, if you will, probably when I was about 19. And so this fluoride concern has been around for decades. I'm in my 40s. I haven't used fluoride since then. I have never had a cavity since I was 12 years old. So, you know, a lot of that, you know, people will say genetic. It's genetic in the sense that it's your oral microbiome. But just like epigenetics, nothing is your destiny. You can control your genes through environmental factors. So, you know, I personally suggest that people definitely avoid ingesting it. If you live in a fluoridated community, I highly suggest you invest in a filter that filters out the fluoride from your water. I do like you to add minerals back in, like trace minerals. We're very deficient in those. Our soil is depleted. We really need minerals for maximum bone and dental density, as well as many other benefits. You know, if your child is not spitting well, I suggest a non-fluoridated toothpaste. I would say politely no to any prescriptions that your doctors are offering you. And if you still want to use fluoride, I would just use it as a toothpaste form or topical. That being said, I'm a big advocate for hydroxyapatite. And this has been around now since the 1970s. NASA actually started using it in their space program. And then a patent was created for it. And then it's been used in Japan and Italy in toothpaste as kind of standard of care since the late 70s, early 80s. And so it's pretty new here in the United States. It's been around, I think, since like 2015 or 16, and it's really blowing up. But hydroxyapatite is what is in our enamel, in our bone. It's basically like a calcium phosphorus. Think of it like a mineral. And it's in our enamel up to 97% content, in our bones up to 60%. And it is non-toxic. It's safe to swallow. I will say there are some blogs going around on the internet right now it's creating this like fear frenzy among moms with nano hydroxyapatite in particular. I have a lot of issues with that blog that came out, and Dr. Berhenna, who is the founder of Ask the Dentist, he's a really great colleague and friend of mine. We are doing a fact check of that blog post, so stay tuned. Where we have a lot of interesting comments about that piece. So my point is, I don't have concerns with nano hydroxyapatite, but if you do, there's micro hydroxyapatite. But regardless, that is what I suggest for remineralizing your teeth instead of fluoride, personally. And I know a lot of dentists will disagree. It does depend on your cavity risk. So when I have really, really high risk patients, or if I have like special needs patients, or if I'm working with a family that I just know it's just too hard for them to implement some of these changes I'm asking of them, then I might suggest a fluoride toothpaste to them. So it's really bio-individual, but generally, if you're low risk and you're kind of doing all the things, I don't think you need a fluoride toothpaste either.
Got it. So then when it comes to like other dental hygiene, like product, what are some good ones that you recommend? Because people kind of worry about, you know, using mouthwash. Is there a good one? You know, we talked about plastic, like, because some of the plastic toothbrush have EPA or phthalates. So
Yes.
is there, you know, a plastic free that you would recommend? And
Yeah,
any
yeah, so that's a really good question. It's so hard. So mouthwash in particular, I'm not a big fan of mouthwash. Most mouthwashes have very strong astringents, alcohols, too many essential oils. Essential oils can strip your oral microbiome. You know, a little bit's okay, but these brands that are like all essential oils, or like, you know, that it burns so good, or it's foaming, this is wiping out your microbiome, you guys. It's really doing more harm than good. It might feel good to you because we've programmed our brains that tingly, burning feeling means clean. No, we have to reprogram ourselves. It's just like how we're over sanitizing everything. And now kids have all these allergies and asthma. You know, it's okay to play in the dirt. It's okay to be exposed to microbes. It's the same in your mouth. You don't need a sterile mouth. So I don't like mouthwash. I do, if you're going to do something, I like oil pulling. And I just did a reel on this. So if you have questions about that, you can just check it out. I show you how to do it. I think it was yesterday. And then I do like baking soda rinses, because that will neutralize and alkalize the mouth and kind of buffer. So that's so cheap and easy. Just throw some baking soda and some water and swish it around a couple times a week or every day if you want. I don't think you can overdo it. As for plastics, I have concerns with a lot of floss. Floss do have, a lot of them are petroleum based. They have PFAS, PFAS, what those are, the phthalates. Even the ones that are marketed, I'm not going to name names, but I've done a lot of research in this because I've created my own floss pick. Even the ones that claim to be green and clean, be careful. So really the cleanest floss out there is BioSilk. But again, you do the best you can. You're not going to completely be able to eliminate your exposures to some of these things. They're everywhere. And so you have to make choices that resonate with you. And I don't love people living in fear and anxiety. Right. I do use BioSilk, but my kids, we use the little floss sticks, and I rinse and reuse them. And I try to get the ones that aren't coated in the plastics and that have fluoride added or flavoring. But I'm sure there's some gnarly stuff in there. I just do the best I can. And I know that they're not getting exposed to chemicals in other ways. Like our cookware is very clean and we filter our water, and you just do the best you can. But anyway, so that's a concern. Toothbrushes, I mean, that's a tough one. The bristles you do need to be mindful of. I do think there's more cleaner versions, but again, you need to live in modern society to some degree. I'm not super concerned with it, if you can find other means to be clean, if you will. So I like tongue scraping too. I have some more on my platform about that as well.
Yeah. You mentioned about floss, so tell us a little bit about Happy Floss.
Yeah, Happy Floss came to me as an idea in 2018, and now we've kind of gone through a crowdfunding pre-sale campaign, and there's more updates to come on Happy Floss in the next few months, so stay tuned. But basically, it's what I have found to be the first truly compostable floss pick on the market. There are many bioplastic floss picks out there, but after my research and speaking to sustainability experts, bioplastic, it's a little bit better, but it's not great, and it still doesn't necessarily break down very efficiently. It can still take hundreds and hundreds or thousands of years. It has to be like the perfect conditions, and it potentially does lead to microplastics again too. So this is made of paper. We found it completely breaks down under a year. It's 100% compostable and recyclable. It has BioSilk floss on it. So it's custom made, like they've never been made before. So the machinery has to be made from scratch to mass produce these. And so that's what I'm raising money for right now. And it's very expensive to make this machine. So I have a pitch deck and I'm pitching to investors, and we're in that process. And it's been hard because I still see patients full time. This is sort of my passion project. I think I'd be further along if I could commit all my time to it. So I'm just trying to do it when I have time. But I'm still very confident they'll be on the market. And there's been a lot of interest in that.
Oh my God, the world needs it.
I'll
get in touch offline because I think there got to be a way to either crowdfund or get this off the ground because the world just really needs it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like it's only one floss picks at 8 billion people, and I know not everyone uses floss picks, but I suggest them for all kids. It's impossible to floss your children's teeth with string floss. It's really hard. And then we did many surveys, and many adults use floss picks too. People with arthritis or special needs or really large hands or just like oral sensory issues, strong gag reflexes, they really do need those floss picks. And so, a single human, if you use one floss pick a day from the age of 2 until the average life expectancy, which is like 74, 75, and, fingers crossed we all far exceed that. You use 30,000 flossers your lifetime. And so times that by billions of people, it can have a really huge impact. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited to see what comes of it. I have some cool announcements coming up, but I just can't talk about them yet. So
We're gonna have to stay tuned.
yeah.
I know we're a little bit over time. I have one last question. So what is, because we talk about like green dentistry, we talk about plastic, because we know like BPA and plastic components are also sealants. So are there any actually plastic-free alternative to dental procedures, like sealant?
This is a wonderful question. I like to preface this by saying the best filling is no filling. There's no perfect material on the market, in my opinion, but there is a really, really, really great product, and it's called Admira Fusion. It's the only thing I use in my practice. It is ceramic based. Is it perfectly clean? I would say no, but it doesn't have BPA. It doesn't have BGMA. It doesn't have some of these other phthalate derivatives in it. So if your child or if you need a filling, I would really ask if your dentist can order that for you. Unfortunately, I've heard from so many people that their dentists really balk at them at this. I don't understand that. You could just order it and the patient pays for it. I don't know. Anyway. And then for sealants, I use that Admira Fusion in like a very liquidy, flowable material. I ozonate the tooth first to make sure there's no bacteria underneath. I am an advocate for sealants if they're done properly. I feel like many times they're not. I did an article on Ask the Dentist all about sealants. So if you go to your search engine and put in Ask the Dentist sealants article, it will pop up, and I wrote that, and it really digs deep into the sealant thing. And they are elective. They're totally elective. They really do decrease cavity risk. And so again, like I chose to do them on my girls, and it's like we eat pretty darn clean right now, but I'm not convinced they always will. They're 6 and 8. So they're going to become preteens and teenagers, and they're going to go to college, and I'm going to lose control over what they're eating. I hope someday they come back around and they start eating as they were raised, because I've helped influence that in their early formative years. But I want their teeth protected as they're like exploring junk food. And, I ate terribly in middle school and like early high school. And my mom actually, even though it was like the 1980s, we ate pretty clean. But I still wanted Doritos and chips and Mountain Dew. I mean, it's so gross to think about now, but you go through those phases, and I just wanted their teeth protected, so you have to make that choice as a parent, but that article I hope could be very helpful for you.
Super useful. Somebody came in late and asked, what can we use instead of plastic flossers?
Yeah, so happy floss.
Right. I was just going to say that.
I think the best choice I've seen is there's something called Easy Floss. It's the letter EZ Floss, and you can get it on Amazon. And it's the smallest little restringable floss thing that I've seen. I do say, like, a lot of parents, that look so good on paper, but I know myself, like, I won't restring it. For me, it's like that balance. I want parents to floss. I want to make it easy. So I rinse and reuse our plastic flossers for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So it's just like you don't throw your toothbrush away every day, So I don't know, but that's what I suggest, or check out the Easy Flosser. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you. We're gonna wait for Happy Floss to come out.
Yes, awesome.
This is so important. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
But this is like so fascinating, and you're doing like such important work. Please continue expanding, because I think everyone needs this. All the parents need this, and not just kids, like all the adults need this too.
Well, you're so kind. Thank you for saying that. It's really, that sentiment is what keeps me inspired. So thank you. But I will say most of these things, I'm a pediatric dentist, but I used to be an adult dentist. And what I teach about taking care of your kids, it applies to you as an adult too. It's really not a lot of difference. So, I hope it can help the whole family.
So thank you so much. So
Thank
everyone,
you.
be sure to follow Dr. Staci at doctors spelled out, doctors underscore Staci. And then we'll have all the information in the LinkedIn bio promoting this IG live, and make sure get the happy floss.
To be continued.
Yes,
Yeah,
to be continued.
follow me, and you'll see my announcements coming up soon. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
weekend. Bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye.